Alright, we are on lesson 20. Our objective for today says I will be able to graph points on a coordinate plane using knowledge of number lines, coordinates, and ordered pairs. So a coordinate plane is made up of two perpendicular number lines. So basically what this is two different number lines. Just like a number line that you would have going from the left to the right, that's what this x-axis right here is. And then on top of that is a vertical axis, which is called the y-axis. So x is your left and right axis, and then your y is your up and down axis, okay? The horizontal line is called the x-axis, the vertical line is called the y-axis. The number lines divide the plane into four quadrants. This is the first, second, third, and fourth quadrant. A way you can remember it, think about drawing a seed. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. The number line, the intersection of the x and the y-axis, this point right here, that is called your origin. Okay? Each point on the coordinate plane is identified as or by an ordered pair. An ordered pair is just two numbers in parentheses separated by a comma. Ordered pair is written like this. First your x value, then your y value. X always comes first, then y. The ordered pair that represents the origin, this point right here, is 0, 0. Okay? The first number in an ordered pair is called the x coordinate. I know that blank's kind of small, but try to fill it in. And indicates the distance to the right or the left of the origin. If a number is to the right of the origin, it is positive. If the number is to the left of the origin, it is negative. A coordinate, the second number, or the y coordinate, so this is your x coordinate. That deals with your left and your right. This is your y coordinate. That deals with up and down. A coordinate helps you locate a point on a graph. So to find or graph a point, you always start at the origin, always start at this center point, then use the sign of the coordinate, figure out whether it's positive or negative to determine the location of the point. So let's do that on the back. The back says to graph each ordered pair on a coordinate plane and to label the point. So our first point is 4, 2. So first thing I've got to do is draw a graph. Now, the boxes here are kind of small, so I'm going to have to come up with a strategy to help label this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two boxes, and every two boxes I'm going to label as, every two boxes I'm going to actually label 2, 4, 6. Now, you don't have to label every single point on this graph. You do just put these little marks. So 1, 2, 3. So on this one, I'm just going to label 4. On this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, remember, on this, right now I'm just setting up the graph. I'm just setting up the graph. I'm not plotting a point yet. I'm just setting up the graph. I've got my x-axis and my y-axis. Here I'm going to label this as, since we're going to the left, this is a -4. And then just writing my tick marks. Here is a -4. Okay? So, all I've done now is set up the graph. The numbers to the right are positive, to the left are negative. The numbers up are positive, the numbers down are negative. Remember, left and right is x, up and down is y. So I've just set up my graph so far. Now let's graph this ordered pair. 4, 2. Now, if we flip back, we remember here that the first value is always the x value. So the first thing I've got to do is figure out where I'm going on the x-axis. I always start at the origin. Always start at the origin. Start at this very middle point. And then my ordered pair is 4, 2. So to plot that, what I've got to do is I've got to go to the right. Because it's a positive 4, I've got to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I don't put a point yet. I've just counted 4 because I've got to figure out what is my y value. My x value was 4, or my x coordinate was 4, and my y coordinate is 2. So I've gone to the right 4. Now I need to go up, since it's positive, up 1, 2. And then I put a point. That's 4, 2. That's the point 4, 2. So I always start with my x coordinate, and then I go to my y coordinate. Let's do the same thing on this next graph. You've got to draw an x and a y axis. So there's my y axis. I'm going to go ahead and label that. Now I draw my x axis. I label that. Again, let's count these off. Make sure this is as straight as it can be. Let's count these off. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's label every fifth one this time. Again, the labeling of the numbers doesn't matter as much. What does matter is that you keep up with where these numbers are. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5 here. Okay? So all I've done right now is set up the graph. All I've done is set up the graph. I went on the, since it's on the right, those are positive. Since I'm going up, that's positive. To the left is negative. Down is negative. Okay? So now I'm going to actually graph this point. It's negative 3, 0. So again, I always start at my origin, or start at this middle point right here. Start at this very middle point right here. And then I figure out, okay, am I going left or right? Because you're always dealing with your x-coordinate first. So since that's a negative 3, I'm going to go left 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then my y-coordinate right here is 0. So 0 means I don't go up or down any. All I do is put a point. So I go left 1, 2, 3. I don't go up or down any, and then I label this point negative 3, 0. And I'm done with that part. Now we're going to deal with independent and dependent variables. This should be something that you have learned in science, but this will also come up a lot in math. So the variable whose value can be chosen, or the input value, that is your independent variable. Your dependent variable is the variable whose value is determined by the input value of another. It's also called the output value. Another way to remember it is that the independent changes or controls the dependent. Okay? So the value of the independent variable, that's the one that can change. That's the one you can choose. And it controls the dependent variable. So, let's look at example 2. For each pair of variables, identify the independent and the dependent variables. So, the number of traffic violations and the cost of auto insurance. Put a line under this. If you see that word cost, cost is almost always going to be your dependent variable. Cost is almost always going to be your dependent variable. So, if we didn't know that, we go ahead and think through which is changing or controlling which. Is the traffic violations, or excuse me, are the traffic violations controlling the cost, or does the cost control the traffic violations? So, do you get in an accident and that controls the cost of your auto insurance, or does the cost control the number of times you get in an accident? Well, that doesn't make any sense. How much your insurance costs has no control over the number of accidents you get into. What happens is the number of traffic violations you get into, the more of those you get into, the more your insurance is going to cost. So the cost, or excuse me, the violations control cost. So that means that your independent variable is the number of traffic violations, and your dependent variable is the cost of auto insurance. Okay? The independent controls the dependent. So the number of traffic violations is controlling the cost. Here, electric bill total and kilowatt hours of electricity use. So which is changing or which is controlling which? Well, the more electricity you use, the more your electric bill is. So the kilowatts are changing the cost or the bill. Cost, bill, same thing. So the kilowatts are changing the cost. So that means the kilowatts, or the amount of electricity you use, is controlling this bill. So that means that your independent variable is kilowatts of electricity, and your dependent variable is the electric bill total. Cannot spell electric bill total. So your independent changes or controls your dependent. We're actually going to put a skip on that, and we will look at that in the lesson practice. That is all.